So ChatGPT recently integrated Etsy. How do you think this is going to impact sellers, and what does it even mean? How does it work? I haven't really looked into it.
It's a really exciting partnership, and I think it's really going to change how people shop and
Hmm.
how your listings can be discovered. So, for example, back in like 2021, when Etsy launched offsite ads, a lot of sellers were really like intimidated by that and didn't like it. But I personally found, I got a huge stream of new customers because of that. And I think that this is going to be along those lines. I think we're going to increase our discoverability. It's impacted how I shop now. I use AI a lot in my day to day life, not just in my business, but in my day to day life, and it's impacted a lot. I would say 50% of my recent purchases have been impacted by AI. And I think that more and more as we go along, especially in the next year, 2 years, that is going to be the case for most people. And so I think it's essential that Etsy, does this integration, and I think it's an exciting new partnership. So basically, the way it's going to work is right now, if someone were to try and shop on ChatGPT, for example, maybe they're saying that they're looking for a gift for their grandma. ChatGPT is going to prompt them and ask, do you want to be personalized? Do you want to be a gift under $30? And it's going to offer those suggestions to them. And then once it has an idea of what they're looking for, it shows them a list of products that they could purchase. Right now, you can't actually check out right in ChatGPT, but as they develop the partnership, the integration, you will be able to do instant checkout, and you're not going to be competing. If you can rank, you're not going to be competing with everyone on Etsy. When someone goes onto Etsy and they click on your listing, they're shown lots of other listings and they could get pulled off of yours. So you basically have more competition. But with ChatGPT, if you can rank, it's only showing them a few listings and they can check out instantly. So I think it could greatly increase conversion rates. I think it's going to be a high converting shopping platform. So I think it's really exciting.
It does sound interesting because if I imagine it right now, everyone's process is you type something in, you apply filters, you have to scroll through and click through
Mm-hmm.
lots of pages. If someone could just quickly say, like even just like a voice note to ChatGPT, say, hey, my grandma's this age, this is what she likes, and
Yes.
this is my budget, and then you instantly get a variety of results, different products in that price range that actually suit your grandma, and you can check out right there. I think that would make it a lot easier for people. It would, yeah, kind of cut down the time it takes, all the clicks and the steps involved. I could see some people definitely liking that. Does Etsy show you if someone's purchased from, like coming from ChatGPT right now?
So they're still working on the integration. So that hasn't been revealed. Like given very vague information
Hmm.
about how would you rank and SEO and things like that. There's going to be a fee involved. We don't know what the fee is yet.
Hmm.
So you're going to have to really monitor your sales to see like how much of your sales are actually coming from this, so that it's not hitting your profit margins too much. So there's a lot of details that have not been shared with sellers yet. Until it rolls out, we really won't know.
I wonder if people that are like hardcore Etsy shoppers or hardcore Amazon sellers would actually convert into that, like trying just doing things through ChatGPT. I wonder what the percentage would be like. Would it just be 5%, 10% of people will switch to that, or will it be so easy that like half of the internet now starts shopping inside
Yes.
of AI language models? I think that'd be a huge shift.
And if we're seeing ChatGPT do this, I expect Google to follow suit before long. Like I genuinely believe that this will be the new way of shopping.
So, like if you Google something, rather than it showing like row of sponsored
Mm-hmm.
shirts, it just generates with AI
Mm-hmm.
results with suggestions. Yeah, it could shift a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
not just the traffic to the actual platforms, but the way Google is structured and the way that Google ads even work. If people don't want to see a row of sponsored ads anymore, but instead have it like all spit out by a language model. Very interesting to see how it develops.
And it will be important for sellers to go on to those platforms, to the AI bots where this is happening and search for their products, and see who's ranking and see if you see common out, anything in common or any patterns of how these shops are ranking. Is it their SEO? Is it their pricing strategy? We're going to need to be really analyzing that so that we're using those strategies to rank too, because once again, it's going to be very high converting if you can rank.
Yeah, what's important? Is it a different keyword strategy? Is it
Yes.
all about mock-up images? It'd be interesting to see what's important for sellers. And you're right, like if you only get a few suggestions out of like one prompt, and you're not competing with all the other shops, it could be a huge driver for new Etsy sales that beforehand you just didn't have. It's like a new audience in a sense that are finding your products and that have less reason to go elsewhere. Can't wait to see what happens with that next year. Might become like a complete new shift in the POD world.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious if Amazon follows as well, because this is kind of Etsy making the first move on something. Amazon obviously being even a bigger e-commerce marketplace. If they start moving in that direction, I think that's another sign. That's very important. Speaking of AI tools, which AI tools do you currently use, like in your day-to-day process?
I use ChatGPT a ton for like I said, my day-to-day life and for my business. I use it for design. I use it for trend research. I use it, for all types of things. But I will say Google's Nano Banana or the Gemini I'm starting to use that more or as much because it's faster, like especially for design. It's ChatGPT can take a minute to create a design, and Nano Banana is like 15 seconds. So it's like they're coming in hot. So they're one to check out too, and they're one that I'm starting to use more. I actually just signed up for the subscription for it within the last few weeks because I was like, oh, this was actually really good. Because before it really was like just okay. It wasn't on par with ChatGPT, but now it is, and it will continue to evolve and even get better. So that's probably the big two ones I use right now is Gemini and then ChatGPT.
The speed at which Google can do the same thing as ChatGPT right now is mind-blowing. I wonder when they're going to catch up, because ChatGPT has been that slow for a while, for probably like half a year. We've had to wait a minute plus for images. And I don't know if you know this feeling, but sometimes you start generating something, then you go to a different tab because it's just taking too long.
Yes.
And then you forget that you were even generating something, and it takes like 10 minutes until you even get back to it. It's like, because it's so slow, you forget as you're doing it that you were even designing something, and it takes even longer. It
reminds me of like back when the internet was like kind of new, like I'm showing my age here, where you had to wait for those pages to load, and you just waited and you waited. And I'm just like, how did we go back to this?
I was just thinking about this recently, actually. I wanted to put this into a video as like an editing effect, because it was like the when you open an image in 2020 and in 2000 or 1999, it would be like,
yes.
That's exactly how it feels, isn't it? It's terrible. It's like we've lost 20 years of progress.
I will say it's a little faster. Like I have two screens. I have like my laptop, and then I have a monitor. And what I do with ChatGPT is I'll generate it on this monitor, and then I'll switch over to do my task on the other one, and it doesn't interrupt it and make it go slower. So just a little hack there.
Yeah. And you can open up multiple tabs and kind of have multiple image generations running at the same time. It does all work, but with Google, you could do the same in
fraction of the time.
A fraction of the time. How did you originally get into print on demand?
So I started print on demand back in 2020, and it wasn't because of the pandemic. It was timed closely to that. But I was a young mom. I was a teacher. I was working full time. I was doing a 45-minute commute. And we just wanted to add an income stream to our family. And I was originally going to sell handmade earrings. And I was really discouraged when I looked up the statistics, like how many earrings would I have to make an extra $10,000 a month? And it was just like, not possible. And even though I was discouraged, I read the statistic that only like a very small percentage of Etsy sellers make over $100 a month. And so I was a little discouraged, but I decided I wanted to still, try this. And while I was looking up different types of jewelry to make, I stumbled upon a video. It was by the Life Hacker couple. And it was about print on demand. And at first it was like too good to be true. Like they didn't really make, almost $1 million in like 9 months. Like that's not true. And the more I looked into it, I was like, this is actually a legitimate new business model that I could do in pockets of my time. I didn't have to fulfill the orders. I didn't have to store the inventory. They would do the printing and shipping for me with a print on demand partner. And I was all in. I opened my shop the next day, and I took it. I didn't approach it in a way that was like, oh, I want to try this out as a hobby or for fun. Like it was a job for me. I just like knew it was sort of like an answer for prayers for me, and it was my ticket out of my 9 to 5, and my 45-minute commute and missing milestones in my child's life. Like I was just all on board and all in, and it changed my life.
When did you know that it was the change for you? Like as soon as you watched the videos, or was it like the first sale where you knew, okay, if I can get this first sale?
I had a feeling right away. Like I just had a feeling like because I was doing research on it, and I was like, I think that this is really possible. But definitely the first sale like cemented it. And like, because my spouse was like very skeptical. He's like, don't, why are you buying mock-ups? Like you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time. Like this is kind of a little scammy. He was very skeptical. And then once I started getting sales and was making real profit, like life-changing money, he was just like, hey, so do you want me to watch the kids tonight so you can make a listing? And definitely that first sale like was very helpful.
How long did that take? Because some people it takes a long time, right?
For me, organically, it took about a month. Which isn't that long, actually. I think some people it can be several months. For me, it was about a month, but I didn't understand a lot. I didn't understand how to add new value. I really thought like, oh, I could just like find a niche that or a listing that's best selling, and I could like put my own slightly unique, tweak on it and slap on a shirt and it's gonna sell. And that's not true. I didn't understand audience. I didn't understand who I was designing for. I didn't know how to add new value to the market. And so it slowed me down, but I was a fast learner. So once I got that first sale and started to realize, okay, I need to pay attention to the audience. I need to pay attention to what's trending, and then adding my own flair there, and really adding value to the market while staying inside a professional aesthetic. And then I really took off. Paying attention to the news cycle was helpful for me that first year. A lot of my sales were driven by the news cycle.
Yeah, it was a big year for news cycle for sure, 2020. You mentioned adding value there a few times, so we'll definitely get into what that means. But first of all, I want to dig a little deeper, because you were a teacher at this point, right, when you switched to print on demand?
Yes.
So I'm curious, did your teaching background help you at all with succeeding at POD?
It helped in a couple of ways. The first way is one of my best-selling niches initially was teachers, the teacher niche, which is a great niche to get into even today, because it helps with getting bulk orders and things like that, where you get those really large orders and you can make a lot of profit, rather than just like having one off here, one off there, and a lot of your profits getting sucked up into shipping costs and things like that. And so that was helpful because I was a teacher. I knew what they wanted. I knew what I liked as a teacher. And so that was really helpful. So starting where you're passionate at, something that you're interested in, whether it's, your profession or a hobby, and then, taking the time to do some research to see if that there's a validation there, that like there's a demand there. If there is, start there, because you'll be more motivated, and you'll have an insider's perspective of like what they want in a way that someone who isn't a teacher may not have that, or who isn't a nurse or a doctor or whatever you are. I have another print-on-demand friend who was a nurse, and that was her breakout niche was in the nursing, and it changed her life, and she became, a content creator and, a full-time Etsy seller. Heather, yes.
Yeah.
And she started with the nurse niche because she was a nurse. So she had sort of that insider perspective there. So start with what you're passionate about, because it's going to help motivate you, and, you'll have that insider insight of like what they want. So that's just an idea. But once again, check to make sure that there is demand for it, because my brother, for example, he had an idea for a niche, that he's really passionate about. And we went into Etsy or Amazon, and it wasn't there. And so he thought at first like, oh, it's a market gap, that I could like come in strong. And we did some more research, and the searches weren't there. So he could have listed it, but it wouldn't have gotten him bestsellers because there wasn't a demand there. So there does need to be demand, but usually there is. Usually if you have a hobby that you like, that other people like, there's a demand there.
Yeah, but it's important you say that. It's a good point, because I remember uploading some stuff that I was maybe passionate about at the time when I started on Etsy, but because it's quite like women-dominated marketplace in terms of, I think, the aesthetic and the types of designs. Nothing of what I was interested in sold on Etsy, right? Maybe on Amazon, but not on Etsy. So you do still have to validate it. And I think it's also interesting what you're explaining about the additional insight into the niche. I think this is important for anyone who finds a niche with potential. It's not just about finding the niche and then throwing up designs. You also ideally want to spend some time to try and understand it. So you know what to design or how to be unique in the niche, what the inside lingo kind of means, because that's what helped Angel really succeed in the teacher niche initially.
And now we have AI, which can do a lot of that legwork for us too, which is really helpful.
Yeah, that is true. It was a lot harder back then to try and understand a niche and come up with ideas. What products do you mainly sell on Etsy?
I have always enjoyed selling apparel. I know that a lot of people don't like selling apparel, but I still do. I still do really well with it. Otherwise, if you're going to go into non-apparel, which is still a great idea today, because apparel can be a pain in that, like, you're dealing with sizing, you're dealing with returns from misprints. And so I think that apparel involves a lot more customer service. And so I kind of like caution people there. Whereas like if you're selling wall art, if you're selling mugs, if you're selling candles, I think anything that's giftable, especially for milestone gifts, I think that those still do really well on Etsy. And you can have an entire shop where you just sell candles, entire shops where you just sell mugs, because people are coming there for gifts. And it helps you to understand like who you're designing for, that recipient. So that's probably where I would start, is more a giftable product.
But in terms of apparel, what you're selling right now, is it mostly t-shirts, sweatshirts, or have you tried out like more of the fringed top sort of products like tank tops, perhaps pullover hoodies? What is kind of your best sellers in that area?
I have dabbled with most apparel, and at this point, I just stick to t-shirts and sweatshirts.
And do you feel like there's a kind of dominance in terms of colors amongst those products for Etsy? Because this is another thing that differs between Amazon and Etsy a bit, the most popular colors that seem to sell.
So white and black are historically like the bestsellers. They just are. However, seasonal impacts, and color trends can impact that as well. A lot of natural, sand, ash, has been really popular, things like that. So there's always going to be those trends, and you'll kind of notice those on Etsy, especially with kids apparel. Like with kids apparel right now, like that natural, like beige color, super popular with kids apparel, baby apparel, things like that. So you'll want to pay attention to those types of trends on Etsy, and you can even, screenshot, bestsellers on Etsy and feed it into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze the trend colors, and it will help you there. But historically, black and white are like the best sellers. And
would you say that customization is kind of a requirement for success at this point, or can you still make it if you just using static? It definitely gives you a leg up. You can see some listings. You can occasionally have some listings that if they're really targeted to an audience and they're really on trend, you don't have to have it. I would say more and more, you really need it, because that's kind of, Etsy knows that people are coming to Etsy for personalized items that they can't get on Temu, that they can't get on Amazon. And it's sort of like a custom, unique gifting platform. That's what they're coming there for. And so I think you're going to be more successful with personalized products than non-personalized. Yeah, it is a big part of their brand, and it makes sense for them to kind of differentiate themselves that way, isn't it? I'm guessing most of your sales come from, or a lot of your sales do come from customized items as well then. Yes. Would you say, because some people might be on the fence right now, they're uploading static, they're thinking about customization, would you say it adds a lot more effort in terms of the fulfillment for you? Not really. Like, you mean like creating personalized products? It used to. In fact, I remember my first Christmas, I had to turn off some of my personalized listings because I was getting so many orders. I couldn't keep up, and it was really stressful. They were selling too much. You had to turn them off. Okay, that's a good problem to have. It was. But when you're going in and you're manually like creating the design, uploading it, because this was before automation software, it's like Anywhere POD, Hello Custom, those types of platforms, where if you are doing a lot of personalized orders, definitely recommend anything that's going to automate it for you. And even Printify now is starting, I use Printify. They're adding more of those personalized features now. Whereas before they did not exist. And so you were going in and you were manually creating those designs, manually uploading them. Like, it was a whole thing. And
very time consuming. So I had to leave money on the table because there were just too many orders. Probably, a month before Christmas, I was just like, I'm done, which ended up being a good thing because that was like one of those years where things were really backed up and, products were arriving late in the mail and things like that. So, but yes, but now because of automation, it's really not a big deal. It's not. It doesn't necessarily take you more time.
Do you have a preference there between Anywhere POD and Hello Custom? Because I've never used either of them. I do most of my stuff with My Designs. So is there one that you prefer? Are there some differences between them?
I just got introduced to Anywhere POD. So I haven't done like a lot of listings with them, but I do feel like they're more of a one-stop shop because they do the personalization and mockups, and they also have like a lot of AI features built in, things like that. Hello Custom is really solid too, though. Like if you're just looking for customization, I think they're solid. They're really great. They're both pretty on par with that feature. But if you're looking for like mockup generation, things like that, then probably I would go with Anywhere POD. I know Chris, he's been on my channel. He's the developer of that product, and it's pretty incredible. And like anyone you talk to who uses it, who's like a high volume seller, they will tell you that like it changed the way that they do print on demand, because it's a hub. You know how like when you're a print on demand seller and you're like, you use this print provider and you're over here and then you need to log into this one and you're sort of like all over the place. This allows you to centralize everything. And you just start there, rather than like logging into Printify, and I'm going to log in, to Merchize. I'm going to log in, to whoever you're using. And this allows you to create a hub. So you're not having to like jump around. It's a streamlining platform.
This sounds similar to My Designs because they've kind of tried to combine loads and different parts of the process into one tool. So like you said, you don't have to have 18 subscriptions and 18 different websites that you log into, which can get very tedious and annoying, which, by the way, I don't think you need as a new seller. Like you can start very simply with one or two tools. It's, I think with time, people add on more and more. As they need more services, and it just gets really confusing. It seems like Anywhere POD is another solution to kind of make that easier. How do you go about spotting high potential niches on Etsy?
So what I tend to do is there's a couple different ways, okay? So one way is to just simply, look for bestsellers on Etsy, type in a niche and look for bestsellers and then see if you notice a pattern. You can use tools like Everbee, Profit Tree, and you can list by or filter the results by age, okay? And then I filter by like the youngest listings, like the ones that were created most recently. And if I'm noticing that they're converting, especially high conversions, I pay attention to those. I try to reverse engineer the search traffic, and especially the most recent search traffic. And so if you're finding listings that have just listed and they're getting sales, like I pay a lot of attention to those listings because that is a new trend. Usually, oftentimes a new trend that's emerging, especially if it's a pattern. So like recently on my channel, Passive Income Angel, I just dropped a video about how Etsy sellers are using a sneaky AI trick, which is basically they're just using AI to create 3D designs, and they're taking off. And then like, one of them was listed like a month ago, one was listed 3 weeks ago, and they're already getting a lot of sales because they've sort of tapped into this new way of designing that other sellers haven't figured out yet. And that's how I spotted that trend, was by filtering by age. So tools like that can be helpful. And then, AI can be helpful too. It can give you a lot of good ideas.
One thing I want to point out here, which I think sometimes is hard to understand as a beginner, is the reason you, I'm guessing, spotted that trend is because you regularly check the best sellers. And therefore you knew, right, these 3D designs are something new that I haven't seen before. The new listings, and they're starting to sell, because obviously there is a lot of new listings that are selling, but some of those might be a trend from 6 months ago.
Right.
That they're just still selling and there's still new listings popping up. It's, I think, about, as a beginner, one of the struggles is you don't have any experience and you need to build up some weeks, some months of regularly checking, not every day, but a few times a week, to build up an understanding of what's already been there and what's new, what are the emerging trends in the space. Would you agree with that? Or
yes, completely agree with that.
Once you've found a niche, you've created your designs, what's kind of the approach to creating the listing SEO?
I I definitely take a look at Etsy. You know, I look at the bestsellers on Etsy in that niche and sort of piece together, okay, what is there a pattern here that people are searching for that they're using at the very beginning of their keywords? I think that eRank can be really helpful for looking to see what people are searching for and getting those high search, lower competition keywords as long as they're relevant for your listing. I think that's a really helpful tool. But just looking to see what's already selling on Etsy and looking at those keywords can be really helpful because that's like the most proof of demand. What's selling right now is like always king and like the most proof of demand.
How important would you say a listing is? Like if we look at the different factors, there's like the niche you choose, the quality of your design or the uniqueness of your design, the listing SEO, the mockups. Would you say the keywords are quite high on that list in terms of importance or a bit lower?
I think that it's probably the most important part in that those keywords are going to indicate like the search traffic. You know, if no one's searching for it, it doesn't matter if it's an amazing mock-up, if it's an amazing design, if no one's searching for it, it doesn't really matter. So I would say that that's the step one are the keywords and like making sure that you're validating a niche and that it's in demand, people are looking for it. Competition can be helpful to know. It's not an end-all be-all. If you're brand new, I do recommend trying to use those lower competition keywords. But I'd say that's number one. Number two is your design.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you do get found and your design is bad,
Yes.
also no one's going to buy it.
Correct.
Yeah, true.
And sometimes people get lucky in the beginning. You know, they happen on a really good design. They don't know that the keywords are good. We've all seen designs where like their SEO is garbage. You know, those best-selling listings where like it's like 5 keywords and they're not that great, but they tapped into a market, you know, or they're using social media to drive traffic.
And I think bad design is another thing that can be misunderstood. It's like sometimes you see designs that look bad that are selling well, and maybe it's just because they fit the niche. It might just be a very basic text, like plain font, black text, and it's doing well. And it's not a very like aesthetically amazing design, but it just fits the niche, and that's what the tag customer wants in that case, and that's why it's working. So again, you kind of have to look at the niche and try and understand it, and see what people actually want. Another thing I'm curious about is if you think about some of your most successful listings or some of your regular sort of best-selling listings, is this something that they have in common, do you think?
They have really high quality photos. Really high quality mock-ups. The designs add new value. So they are unique, but they incorporate current trends. So for example, like Coquette is popular on Etsy right now. Western is popular. So maybe they've cross-niched those aesthetics with a couple different niches, like maybe it's coffee lovers and book lovers, and they've cross-niched that with an aesthetic that's popular. That's what a lot of really successful sellers on Etsy, that's why I tend to see them do to stand out. And then they do have really strong SEO, usually. So they have like their most important keywords at the very beginning. And then they have like, they also have almost always have an audience in mind, like who is this for?
Like gift for and then blank. That's very important of what you're typing in there. When you say adding value, I know you gave an example there, but what are some different ways to add value to either a niche if you found it or just make your design essentially more valuable?
Sure. So I'll just like give an example of what I did in my last video with that 3D design. It was just like glossy red stockings hanging on like a green wreath. So it's like very like generic Christmas design. And so I know that like pastels are popular right now. I know that Coquette is popular. Also like natural elements, so like eucalyptus, things like that is popular. And so I actually put it into ChatGPT, like that image, and was like, you know, keeping in mind current trends. And I feed my ChatGPT like trends all the time. Like I'll screenshot bestsellers on Etsy, and so like not only is it pulling from the internet of its own knowledge, but it's also feeding it like more recent information.
It's trained. It's trained on
yes,
what
I'm
you see.
training it. Yeah, I'm training on trends. And so then I ask it to add, you know, to give me a list of 20 ideas of how to add new value. And it suggested, you know, adding eucalyptus leaves. It suggested doing a different color palette that's more on trend. Because right now, colors that are more non-traditional are popular this holiday season. So that's like just one example. I can quickly look at a niche and go, oh, this is what's missing right now because I know what's trending. So like I can look at maybe I happen upon trying to think of a niche idea. I'm in the nurse niche and I go, oh, coquette's missing, or or like a messy coquette, or the doodles, the doodle trend right now, or the iridescent Y2K, or isn't being mixed with Western. I can quickly look at the bestsellers and go, this is missing. I'm going to assert myself here with that. But once again, AI can help so much with that.
All right, so it's essentially almost like finding a gap in the market.
Yes.
Your market being a certain niche. The gap is a style or a popular template that hasn't really been placed in the niche yet, or a certain cross niche between two hot topics that hasn't been done yet, rather than just taking the best-selling listing and copying it.
Yes. Now I will say, my very first breakout listing, it was like a $30,000 listing I made between like November 1st and like Christmas. Okay, this is my first Christmas, and I found it was based on keywords that I found on eRank, where it was high search, low competition, and I was like, oh, that's a market gap. I actually created products around those keywords, which might not necessarily always work for you, but I'm starting to get an idea of trend and what people were buying and things like that. And I was able to find a gap in the market that way too. So basically, yes, I'm always searching for gaps in the market, whether it's a design aesthetic or keywords. And
if your ChatGPT is not kind of pre-fed with lots of trend data, I guess you would have to take some screenshots, collect screenshots of trending, like new best-selling designs, and then give those as a reference. Is that what you would do?
It's helpful to do that, but it really is, because it pulls from all over the internet, and people are constantly blogging and publishing trend videos about Etsy. It can pull from YouTube too. People are covering it there. So it's, even if you don't train it, like go the extra mile to train it further, it's still going to give you lots of good ideas.
Okay, awesome. What about ads? Do you run ads on your store? And if so, what's your approach there?
I do. I don't rely on it solely. I think that if you're a new seller, use it cautiously. If you don't know what you're doing yet, you don't have a lot of sales under your belt, I would be very cautious running them, because you might get a sale here or there, but your profit margin will be eaten up. So I am very cautious with ads in the beginning. I think you should have more organic proof before you start running them. But once you kind of get organic sales under your belt, maybe 30, 50 sales, then that's when I would probably start running them. And to me, they're a fuel. They add to the fire, but they can't be your fire. So I think that they can definitely help you to get to scale your shop, but I wouldn't rely on them.
So if you imagine you're a new store, you've been doing Etsy for half a year, and you have some listings that are starting to take off, some listings that aren't, and now you decide to turn on ads, would you just run them across the whole shop to test, or would you just select the items that are already kind of taking off?
I would just select the ones that have already organically gotten sales. But you can welcome to test it. You do get lots of like good SEO information from Etsy from running those. But I wouldn't do it for long, because once again, it's going to eat up your profit.
You have to be careful, right? If you're running it across the whole store, there might be some random product wasting ad spend. Okay.
If the market doesn't want it, it doesn't matter if you've run ads. The market is always the test.
Yeah, that's true. And that's another, I think, another important point is don't marry your designs, right? If you get really attached to your designs, you might be running ads and spend $50 without a single sale because you believe it should be selling, but if you spent $50, there's probably not that much, either no demand or people just don't like your design, which is fine. We've all designed stuff that nobody wanted. It's part of being a print-on-demand seller, sadly.
That's how you become... See, those types of designs people shouldn't be so sad about, because that's how you get to where you need to be. Like, I made a lot of bad designs, but I appreciate them now looking back, because they got me to where I needed to be to become a better seller and to understand what the market wanted. And so I appreciate those designs that didn't sell. Another thing to do that can be helpful as a new seller is, if you're attacking a niche, you've created your listing, go onto Etsy and search those keywords, screenshot, the top 4, the top 8 listings, put it into Canva or, whatever software you use, and then put your mock-up into one of those spots and see, does it fit? and try and be as honest as you can, which again is hard if you're married to your designs, and be honest with yourself. Is this as good or better? Because that's what it's going to take to get that sale. And that can be really helpful too.
Yeah, put yourself next to the competition, because in your own store, you're just next to your own images. So it's,
Right.
yeah, you
You're
don't
just
really
like,
know. That's a good tip. Generally, if you imagine starting out right now, what would you do? And maybe also from a sense of, because I think most people coming into POD, they come into the business model because it's fairly affordable, right? You don't need a lot of investment. So if you didn't have a lot of budget, you're starting POD, what do you think you would do?
if I was brand new, you are coming in at literally the best time. I think people are intimidated. They think that they've missed the boat. That's it. Like, I missed the boat. Now that AI is here, anyone can copy my designs. It's going to be too easy. No, you are coming in at like the best time, because you don't have to buy mockups anymore. You don't have to hire someone to create your designs. You don't have to be a great designer. AI can do a lot for you. And once again, you can say, oh, well, if I can create it with AI, then anyone else can. Well, that could have been said 5 years ago. Oh, you have Canva and you can copy my design in Canva. Like, we all have the same tools now. So make sure that you're taking the time to learn AI. Phil just dropped a video about AI design using Google. Guys, check that out because it was fire. If you are leveraging AI, you are going to get so much further than everybody else. If you take the time to use, Nano Banana to create unique social media content, it can create really, 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 really realistic mockups now that you could tackle a trend on TikTok and go viral. Like, there's so much opportunity there if you're willing to get creative, you're willing to put yourself out there and take a risk. There's no better time to start, because now all of these barriers to entry that we had are not there anymore. And it's really, to me, it's like a really exciting time to get in. I would start with what we talked about earlier. Start with what you're passionate about. Are you a nurse? Do you like skateboarding? Do you like whatever you like? If you like it and there's a following for it, there's a lot of people who like it too. Or you're really passionate about your profession. You're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an accountant. Okay, you have insider information there that can help you, especially with an AI assistant, to go further than you could imagine. So I think that now is a great time to get started. And I would start with what you're passionate about and what you're motivated with, and start there, and then you can branch out from there.
It seems like you suggest more of like an evergreen topic, right? Because I think
Yes.
at the moment, with it being Q4, a lot of people would assume, okay, if I'm starting now, I have to make Christmas designs. That's what people are buying now. Like, ignore teacher, ignore nurse. It's Christmas.
Right. But people are buying for those people, and they're often buying evergreen items. Like, don't get me wrong, Christmas does well too, but they're often they want to buy something that they can wear year round. They want to buy them something that they can use year round. They don't want them to just, this is only for Christmas. Most people don't actually shop that way. So, and don't forget that Q1 is coming up. People are getting their tax money. And staying in niches too that have a lot of strong emotional ties to them and milestones, where they're creating a memory. Oftentimes people are wanting they're not purchasing a gift necessarily, they're purchasing a memory. And those are always like recession proof, you know what I mean? And so keeping that in mind can be helpful too.
Do you have an example there of like milestone niches?
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. Getting married, bachelorette, bachelor, first baby, having a baby shower gifts, baby's first Christmas, baby's first everything, first birthday, second birthday, third birthday, 60th birthday, anniversary. There's so many milestones in our life that people want to celebrate, and they want custom products that they're willing to pay more for to create this really special memory.
Back to the teacher niche, right? You've got all the graduation celebrations, all of that stuff
absolutely.
As well.
Yes.
Really big.
Seniors is huge, guys, by the way. That's another niche that I broke out in my first year, was like graduating seniors. And then that summer, before summer, you want to have the next year ready to go, because they do all their senior pictures over the summer. And so seniors can go crazy. So like class of 2027, 2028, things like that.
So you would already start designing, thinking about that now.
Yep.
Even though it's like, it's 2 years out, but people are already buying shirts, you would say, for that.
And ornaments too, graduation ornaments. A lot of people commemorate that.
Okay. It's not what I would expect someone buying an ornament for. So that's a good tip. It's totally different culture over here in Europe, I think, with that kind of thing. I can't imagine people buying ornaments for a graduation. But Yeah,
I just
different
saw a
world.
video of someone who was comparing like how we celebrate Halloween in the U.S. versus in Europe, and like in Europe, they're like not many people dress up, but when they do, it's like really scary. And here, it's like really campy, and we put out like all these decorations, and just like it's really different the culture.
Yeah, totally different vibe. There's so much more hype, I think, in America around it as well. Like I
Yes.
remember,
Yeah.
I remember being in Orlando and like the entire theme parks get like completely rebuilt to just be a Halloween
Yes.
theme for the month or something like that. So what? Nobody would do that here. Is there anything that you think we haven't mentioned yet that people should know about
Um,
print on demand? Any important advice or maybe something you see a lot of people struggling with if you coach them that we haven't mentioned yet?
a lot of people just struggle with creating bad designs, and they think that they're good.
How do you
That's
improve that?
how do you improve that?
What's
AI
the
can
tips?
help. AI can help.
But how do you know what's good coming out of AI? Because I think that's another problem, right?
Yeah,
You
it's true.
assume
I've seen a lot
because
of
it
bad
comes out of
AI
AI.
designs for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Once again, just looking at the top competition and going, would this compete with them? Can be really helpful. Being honest with yourself about that.
Study what works, compare your design to them. What are the differences?
Now,
Yeah.
be consistent. Treat it like a job, not like a hobby. If you act like it's a hobby, you're going to get hobby results. If you act like it's a job, you're going to get job-like results. So just take it seriously because it is a business. It's a legitimate business that can change your life. So take it seriously.
And don't take it to heart if you don't get a
Yes.
sale straight away. 'Cause
Exactly. And
to,
it's a journey. I went to school for over 4 years to become a teacher. This is a legitimate business. It's a learning curve, and you're learning a lot about a lot of different hats. And so, keep that in mind too. I would say that your first 6 months on Etsy really is just a learning curve. I would go into it that first 6 months not even worrying a ton about profit and just making it a learning process, so that because you're building a business from the ground up. And so just keeping that in mind.
where can people learn more from you?
Sure. Passive Income Angel on YouTube. I also have TikTok, Passive Income Angel, and I also on Spotify on the Wednesday Grind podcast.
Okay, sweet. And you've got one-on-one coaching, right? I think as well.
I have a small membership. It's kind of like a beta membership. It's called the Etsy Trend Lab, and basically I just do monthly trend drops there, AI prompt packs and SEO, and I really deep dive into trends. So I'm going to be opening that up as more of a social membership soon. But yeah, that's I don't have like a one-on-one coaching at this time.
Okay. All right. I'll leave all the relevant links to those in the description. Thanks a lot for coming on, Angel, and sharing
Thanks so
all
much
of
for
your
having
knowledge
me. It
with
was a
us.
pleasure getting to meet you and to be here.